Hey everybody, today's our first day working with clay, so a few things we need to get started. We need one of these big bags, doesn't matter if it's new or if it's already been used, and you're going to want to use a permanent marker to write your name on there and your class period as well. Additionally, we are each going to need a paper clip at our tables, and we're going to have to open them up like this. Each table also has a tool container that we get to share. As we work through our masks, we don't want them to be scary, no blood, no guts, and everything has to be school appropriate. To get started, you do need a placemat paper. I'm using a clean placemat paper just so it's a little bit easier for you to see what I'm doing here. And something to think about with your clay is anytime you're not using any clay, it should go back in your bag. It's up to you. If you want to make your mask look like your paper version, you can. Otherwise, you can start a whole brand new one. All right. I've got my extra clay in my bag and I did close it so it doesn't dry out, and now I've got this piece, and I think at this point everybody should kind of already have an idea of how to make a pinch pot, but just in case, roll it into a ball, smooth it, give it a thumbs up, now my thumb is inside and my fingers work their way around the edge up here, and each time I pinch, I rotate. So if you watch my fingers here, as I pinch, my pointer finger goes to the same spot that my middle finger was just at. Once I go all the way around, then I move up to the top and I continue to pinch. You want your top piece to be a little bit thinner than your pointer finger, so that's actually a little bit too thick. I'm going to keep pinching. Now what I don't have right now is a shape that's going to work for a mask. I do have my pinch pot made, but here's how I'm going to start to change that into more of a mask shape. I'm gently going to pull to turn it into more of an oval, and then obviously if you look at this profile view here, this would be kind of a funky looking mask shape. So I'm going to continue to push until I've got something that's a little bit more suited to kind of looking like the profile or the side view of a face. All right, I've got my mask and it's formed into a nice rough oval shape. Now I need to figure out what I'm going to start to add on here. And when I add stuff on, I'm going to be using this extra clay because one of the things that our project has as a requirement is we need at least 2 add-ons. This little wad right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of separate it in half, and I'm going to use this to build some eyebrows. And that's going to fit a little bit better. Now you probably realize that I haven't scored these pieces to put them on yet because I'm just kind of curious to see what type of shape I want them to look like before I actually put them on. Score, 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 and then score some more. If you don't score your clay when you add 2 pieces together, it's never going to stick. So I've got both of these pieces scored with that nice rough texture. Then I'm going to gently push them together, and then I'm going to smooth them all in. Now, using that bucket of tools at your table, feel free to experiment and see what tools work best for what kind of job. Sometimes the end of a pencil works really well for smoothing in those cracks. So another thing that our project is going to need is at least 2 pieces that we've actually cut out of the clay called incisions. And one of the best tools that we have to do incision making is actually the paper clip. And then I would definitely want to kind of come back in and smooth out the edges. Go ahead and just lightly trace it until you get the shape that you want. Now once you've got that, then you can slowly continue to trace that line with your paper clip until you make your incision all the way through your clay. Now I think I'm going to make a nose that looks kind of like a human nose, but it's not going to be entirely humanistic. It's going to be a little bit larger than most humans' noses, and sometimes kids have questions about how to make noses, and it's actually just kind of starting off by pushing your clay into a triangle, and easiest to do that with 2 fingers and 2 fingers, and kind of pushing and then just moving around, pushing on all sides of your clay So you've got a shape that kind of looks like this. Okay, I got both pieces scored and ready to put together. So along the way, you may end up accidentally pushing your clay kind of out of whack. Don't stress. Clay, as long as it's still kind of wet, is pretty forgiving stuff, and we can just gently push it or pull it or even smush it back into the form that you need it to be. So we're at a spot where I'm trying to make lips, and this is also going to be a good place for you to see why we need that placemat paper. If you're going to push things flat and you don't push them on your paper, they're probably not going to come up quite as easy, or at least not without being deformed and ruined. So if I'm trying to make a lip, I push this piece flat, and then if I'm making a top lip, I'm going to actually go ahead and trace what I think a light kind of line for a top lip would be. Like a letter M with two really long legs on the sides. And then I'm just going to keep on tracing that with my paper clip until
evolutionary process going on, but mankind won't be destroyed. The fact.
okay. We need at least two textures on this project. A texture is anything that you can actually feel. And by nature, you're obviously going to have one texture because your clay has already got that smooth texture to it. So you could obviously use a tool to create a texture. All right. So a few more things I'm going to do to this. This is kind of just a basic project to give you guys an idea of how to put all this stuff together. I do want my project to end up kind of looking like one of those Dia de los Muertos sugar skulls or Day of the Dead skulls. And so one of the things that I want to do is kind of add that flower pattern out around one of these eyes. If you are to a point where you think you're done, double check to make absolutely positive that everything that you've got on your clay project is smoothed in. Use your paper clip and write your name inside. If you can't write your name inside so we can read it, that's all right, let me know. And I will use this slightly pointier version of the paper clip called a needle tool, and I will write your name in there for you. So if you're not done, you'd want to put everything carefully into your bag, including any extra clay you might need. And you'd want to give that bag a seal, and then carefully carry it with two hands over to the shelf. Depending on what class you're in, you're obviously going to have to put it on the shelf that has third grade and the first letter of your teacher's last name. Now, if you were done with your project, you would leave it on the shelf outside of the bag with your name on it, just like that. And you would take your extra clay and you'd put it back in the extra clay bag. All your extra bags can be flat and folded up and left kind of by this bar on the shelf for your class. Clay tools should be wiped down if they have any extra clay stuck to them. Otherwise, if they're pretty clean, just go ahead and leave them back in the bucket. Bring the bucket over here. Placemat papers can be dumped in the trash can and put back over there on the cart. And any extra pieces of clay can be swept into a pile on your table, swept into your hand, and then put in the trash can. Clay is easiest to wash off your hands with just water. Lots of us already know, but this crazy looking contraption is the actual kiln, and all your projects go inside here. These are shelves, which I can actually stack up to fill this thing all the way. This little doodad is the thermometer. And that thermometer gives us a reading here. Everything that I need to do with the kiln gets entered in here, and I start it. and it automatically takes care of firing. When I've got a lot of work inside that kiln, I will use this whiteboard to kind of label where each class is inside the kiln, so I know even when the lid's closed where stuff is. Part of the fun in working with clay is the availability of all these colors to glaze. And this thing will be out in the classroom when we start working with our clay in terms of glazing, but it shows you what all of these colors will look like when it's fired.